Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. What's up, Holmes?
Beware, your host, Jonathan Holmes.
I really feel like Sinistar's pissed off at me now, or disappointed at least, because I was talking to his intro. Sorry, Sinistar. Great to see you, and great to see you, Vieko and Mike. Is that,
Hey.
I pronounced your name right, Vieko?
You sure did.
Yep.
Awesome. That's the third time I've ever said it. The first time right before the show. Second time was the first time I said it on the show.
It's impressive. You got it. You got it right the first time. Nobody ever gets it.
Where are you from?
The name is Croatian, and I was born in Bolivia in South America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Are you of Croatian descent?
Half of me is. The other half is Bolivian. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that's fun. And Mike, I'm guessing you're from the United States. You look all American.
I am all American. Apparently, yes. I am from the States, yes.
Ah, and how did you two meet? How did you start teaming up on making things?
Vieko used to be my boss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Whereabouts? In what capacity?
We well, I don't know. We were at an advertising agency. That's how we kind of came up before games. We were doing marketing and advertising. So.
Yeah. Mike showed up one day at the agency with like this rumpled up piece of paper, trying to get hired, and we weren't hiring for anything, but to be honest, we were desperate for a designer, so we ended up like hiring him, and he just never left. Actually, I fired him.
He
once,
did fire me once.
and then for some reason we rehired him, and then years just passed, and we just left. We left the advertising world and started doing games.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. How long ago did you meet? How long have you known each other for?
2006, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So going on 10 years, over 5 years.
Yeah,
And
it's been a while, man.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2009 we left advertising, and we got the plan was to get into games right away. But when you're self-funding yourself, you kind of have to find money wherever you can, and then save up enough and start working again on the game. So we got lucky. We got a very good client right off the bat, and that kind of funded us for the first year. And
yeah, we just sat around and played a lot of Street Fighter. Didn't do a whole lot of building of games, but
yeah, it's part of the process.
it is part of the process.
So what made you want to leave the relatively safe? It's not easy, and it's not 100% safe advertising. It's very cutthroat from what I've been told. But making your own video game is a total shot in the dark. That's so many people try. Rare do they meet the success you've had, but you must have believed in it to move forward. What was the impetus to make that move?
Yeah, you want to know? I mean, we had always talked about it. Like, Mike and I, we had this banter going on for a while about games and making games and whatnot. And it was him one day that went, "Oh, can I borrow your PC? I'm just going to start working with Game Maker," which he never did, for the record.
Well, I kind of did.
No.
Here's the thing: is
Yeah.
I did. It wasn't.
He
even
broke
Game
my
Maker.
computer.
I did break his
This
computer.
is the end of the story. He just broke my computer, and he started with Game Maker. He's like,
No,
"Oh,
I didn't. I started with what's it called? Torque Engine.
Oh yeah,
And,
Torque.
and that was not fun. And yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I've been programming for as long as I can remember. I don't know. I guess I did try to make something way back when with HyperCard, and it didn't quite work out for me. I wasn't very happy with it, and this is when I was, I don't know, a child, maybe like 9 years old or something like that.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
And
I
at
got
that
lucky.
point,
My
you
dad
were-
had one of the first, Macs. So, I always had a computer in front of me since I was very young.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of how we jumped into it. But the thing that made it happen, we were one of the last days of us in advertising, last weeks, I would say. We're sitting down. We've done everything that we need to do for the day. And he's playing a game by Connor Ullman, Quietus.
Yeah, I was playing Quietus.
He's playing Quietus, and I am watching a video of Noel Berry showing off Leap for Blue. And these are kids. At this time, these two were like 16 or 17. I'm like, God damn it.
No, Noel was like 14.
Or 14. I don't know. They're just children, right, at this time. And I'm like, I want to meet these people. and two, we gotta get ourselves into this because if they can do it, we can definitely do it. Not to take anything away from them because the two of them are super talented and they're working together now. Funny enough.
Oh yeah, interesting.
So
was it that you thought it was accessible for the first time, or was it that you just had this spark of we have to do this, seeing how much fun they're having, seeing how great their products are?
Man, I felt so inspired to see that guys at that age, just with the simplest of tools, we're putting together things that I've always wanted to put together, or that we always wanted to put together ourselves, right?
I think if we hadn't talked about building games for so long, we probably would have, we wouldn't have done it on our own, possibly. I mean, I don't know, maybe a year after I started, we started just bantering back and forth about all the games and all the shit that I want to build and all the crap that he wants to build, and they kind of mold together eventually. But.
That's how it worked out. So, I don't know. Shortly after I left, for whatever reason, and then he left a little bit after that, and we booked our flights and just went to Victoria for Orchid Jam, the first Orchid Jam. It was our first game jam. We met a whole bunch of awesome people, including Noel. And it's never looked back, man. That was it.
Awesome. And how... Well, I'm interested to hear what games, other than those two games, inspired you. Games maybe growing up, maybe games at some other point in your life. But after that, I want to hear about how the experience has been, because it's a completely different world. It's almost like going out to the Old West and just staking a claim and hoping.
Which is awesome. Yeah, it's great. I don't know. We can both say that The Legend of Zelda had a huge impact on the two of us, right? At slightly different times, because Mike's about 4 or 5 years younger than me.
Yeah, something
like that. But that was one of them for sure. And it's funny because we were researching for tattoo artists at the time. We had no tattoos at the time, right? And I wanted to get a Legend of Zelda sleeve, right? I wanted my whole arm covered with The Legend of Zelda. And one day he goes like, you know what? I found the best artist, and I want to get a Legend of Zelda sleeve. I'm like, fuck, he beat me to it, right? And he did beat me to it. So now I don't have it, and he has it.
I have a Legend of Zelda sleeve.
Yeah, and which sucks, but it's fine. It's awesome, but it's not on my arm.
Is there a dragon on there too?
Huh?
I think I saw a dragon's paw.
No, that's Ganon.
That's Ganon, man.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see it now. The camera's a little.
Yeah.
Blurry. Wow, that's nice. It goes all the way down to your wrist, huh?
Yep. Got a whiz robe there.
Whiz robe?
Yeah, got an iron knuckle back here.
Whoa.
Zelda's on the inside. I'm all over the place now.
When did you get that?
You know what? It was one of those things. It's like, if we're going to start building games, I'm going all out on this one. So around the same time we started the
We don't want to be employable ever again.
Exactly.
Let's cover ourselves in tattoos, never go back, that kind of thing.
So
what do you have, Vieko? I see you have a sleeve as well.
I got tentacles and crows, man. That's on the one arm, and then I got bats and vines on this one, but this one is still getting worked in. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice. It's like a bat worm.
I know, it's awesome.
So, then I'm going to, eventually, this arm's bare now, but this is going to be Mega Man all the way.
All right. But anyway, so going back to games that inspired us.
Zelda, Mega Man,
Legend of Zelda.
Ninja Gaiden 2, Dark Sword of Chaos was a huge one for me.
As opposed to Ninja Gaiden 1 and Ninja Gaiden 3?
Well, I like them all, but 2 is the one, I don't know, for whatever reason. I think there's that certain age where you're just super, you're like molding clay. And it was one of those games that I was just playing nonstop, and for whatever reason, that game's always stuck with me.
Yeah, Castlevania, it's huge for me.
Yeah, Street Fighter. The classics, they're the classics.
So you went into it with that era in mind, it sounds like. And you've made a game that fits perfectly in that era, at least in my opinion. Krunch feels like other games that are recreations of that era while adding a lot of things you don't often see in that genre. People think, oh, it's got buzzsaws, it's going to be a platformer, but it almost feels more like a racing game. It's about velocity and throttle and keeping aware of your speed and dealing with your own anxiety about dying all the time, without rushing into something and killing yourself in the process. So to me, it's a game about trying to keep your cool, trying to stay zen and calm, but at the same time being motivated by the fact that you're almost always going to die. Your life meter's going down, your clock's going down, the saws are coming, the walls are coming, the Cyclops jerks that seem so sadistic. They really made me feel like I lost hard. They are truly bullies, which is how the Ninja Gaiden made me feel completely bullied by those frickin' birds. Man, they had
the birds are the worst too, and they took up so much energy.
Yeah,
and they're completely unencumbered. They just show up whenever they want. Like you.
I always thought that was so funny because it's like you have dudes with clubs and swords, but no, it's the birds that hurt you the worst.
So, how has that been to work on a game? How long did you work on Krunch for, and how has it been to release it? It came out late last year. Is that right?
Yeah, December last year.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we started on Krunch 2010, I think.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010 or something like that. We had it fairly playable in about 3 months. It didn't look the way it looks today, right? But it was playable, and we had about 100 levels even at that point. I mean, obviously, it was nothing. Some of those levels are still in the game, but it progressed quite a bit, and it didn't really take off until we made it to Winnipeg. We went to Winnipeg for the Winnitron Game Jam, and during the jam we made a versus mode for Krunch, which is actually quite fun. And after that, we came back, renewed with like a whole bunch of ideas and whatnot, and we just kept going, man.
Yeah.
And how did you survive? Did you have to do other things for money at that time? How do you live?
Well, this is a year that we were like I said, lucky to get a fantastic client. And I mean, they basically said, do all the marketing for all our properties and all that. And so we had like a couple of restaurants. We had a hotel. We had a spa. We had a whole bunch of stuff to work with, right? So that kept us floating for some time. Obviously, every great thing comes to an end. So, like, that contract ran out, and I had a son, so we kind of had to like put everything on pause for a while there.
Yeah.
But we continued to do things here and there, and eventually got to the point where we actually almost sold Krunch to one of these Flash websites. We were so close to almost do it, and for one reason or another, it didn't come through, and we ended up making the game like a full-fledged actual game, as opposed to a web game.
Yeah.
And I'm remiss at asking each of you what you did on the games. What were your responsibilities in terms of putting it together?
I did all the programming and half of the design. Mike took care of the other half of the design, the levels, half of the music.
Yeah, I split that with Rich, Disaster Piece.
Yeah. Which
was an honor to work with him. It was really awesome.
Yeah.
And you, who did the graphics?
He did the graphics.
Awesome. Yeah. It's there's something about the game, I don't know what it is, but it belies expectation. Like, I thought it looked good, but for some reason I thought, I've got this game figured out already. And then when you play it, it's much more evocative in general. The amount of feelings I've had in Krunch are extraordinary, from relief to pride to complete shame. Because and it speaks to the game in general. I found that there was not as many times as I expected where you just like freaked me out on sight. Like a lot of games in this obstacle course genre that's getting bigger and bigger again, which is nice to see. They like scare the crap out of you with a screen that's just filled with terror. But you would make me feel safe and comforted like a little baby at first. And then all of a sudden, what? But always in a fair way, like never in a way that I couldn't have avoided if I had just been more careful. Kind of like when Mega Man's at its best, I would say. But without the hindrance of jumping and being like, I screwed up my jump. It's always 100% your fault because you always have 100% control in your game, which I'm just complimenting you for a long time. Sometimes I do that.
No, thanks, man. That's awesome to hear.
We'll take it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad to feel like that went over okay. But so you released the game in December, and it's been out for a few months, and you're working on getting it on Steam Greenlight, so people who are interested in that and want to support the game should definitely upvote it. Tell us about how the Greenlight process has gone for you so far.
It is what it is.
Well, you get started.
What is it? It is so... I just... not to make it about me, but last week I wrote a story for Destructoid that upset a lot of people. They felt as though I was trying to make them feel guilty because I asked them why they would vote no on a game for Greenlight. Because it seemed to me that voting no is just kind of like hurting a game's chance. It certainly makes a game look bad. It makes the developers feel bad and make them less likely to feel optimistic about their game to see so many no votes. When it's just as easy to vote yes or just tolerate the fact that it might pop up in your queue every once in a while. And people got really upset and said, no, those no votes don't matter, you son of a bitch. How dare you make me feel so guilty for voting no? Don't make me feel feelings. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel feelings. Maybe the no vote isn't so bad. But you guys know from the inside scoop, do those no votes mean anything to you? And do you think they affect your chance of getting on Greenlight? I mean, getting on Steam at all through Greenlight?
You know, I guess I never really paid attention to the no votes.
Like he does. He doesn't pay attention to much things, but...
but it was mainly... I mean, because we didn't know. Going into it, we had no idea what our chances were with Greenlight. And, you know, actually, that's not true, because before Krunch was really ready to actually be shown, we sent it over to Valve, and this is before.
This is 2010, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, or 11 even. I don't know, but...
And the response we got from them was, it was positive, but basically said, you know, not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
You know, like, you know, I think that was around the time that we were thinking about making this a web portal game, and I think they could see that it was designed originally to be that way.
Yeah.
Did it have a different art direction then?
No, it was.
It wasn't as complete as it is today.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel as round, if you will, and the levels just, you know, I guess the flow was a little different. So it was almost in the middle. We're like, okay, this is a game that will play great with a controller or great on a computer, as opposed to like, you know, okay, this is a game that I will play casually, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Where were you going with this whole thing?
Well, I was just going to say, like, you know, at that point, Greenlight didn't exist, and we said, okay, and then we decided to make it a fuller game, I think, than what we had originally intended it to be. And then Greenlight rolled around, and we just kind of said, what do we have to lose? We might as well put it up there, right? We'd already kind of gotten a no, and we'd heard from other developers at that point that if you tried to contact them directly, if you weren't really known to Valve, they would just say, oh, go to Greenlight. You know, we knew we were going to get pushed there anyways.
Yeah.
So we put it on Greenlight, and I think we had success in the beginning, but it's just one of those things. You're in a queue, just like...
to be honest with you, I don't even know how you measure success with something like Greenlight.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so we were getting like 1% every day or something like that. So like, yeah, you know, it's awesome. But you're also seeing those no votes go up and up and up and up, right? Because I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I agree with your article. I don't think there's really any need for that at all. Like you might as well just either not vote or you know, pass. You know, pass. Go to the next game or whatever you want to call it. But yeah. Yeah, I think the ability of saying no brings the worst in people. You know, it's like the internet. It's like, oh, nobody's gonna see me blunk.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say no because I really don't care, and like, you know, and I hate retro games or whatever reason you may have.
But that's what I was gonna say is, you know, I think the majority of the reason we got downvoted or the no's or whatever is because it does have a retro pixel style, and there's a lot of people out there that just hate that. They just despise the way that looks, and they're not gonna go anywhere near it.
They don't know any better.
Fair enough. But that's not true. I mean, there's young people making pixel games.
It's true.
It's its own style now. So, you know, and whatever. People have their own opinions. I don't care. There's certain games I don't like.
Yeah.
But
oh, sure. But I can't think of a time when I've ever actively sent a message to a developer like, I don't like your game. Maybe it's because I've been in the position of relative power that I'm in now that I wouldn't want to have that much of an impact. If I say, like, publicly, I think so-and-so's game sucks, then it means more than it would have before I worked at Destructoid. But it's a weird position for you guys to be in, and I would I always hope that Valve is there to make things very clear to you as to how they make decisions from the Greenlight process. But the other developers I've talked to on Greenlight are like, they told us the no votes aren't that big of a deal, that they don't cancel out yes votes, but they don't tell us how much yes votes or how many yes votes we need, and we don't know if they're secretly looking at the no votes and considering that or what's going on. So have they been clear to you about what you'll need to do on Greenlight in order to pass? Do you know
I mean, we've never talked with Valve. And it's just a process. I think, and they've been very public about saying like they haven't quite figured out Greenlight either. I think that it's not working as they intended. I mean, we haven't talked to Valve. I mean, I can't speak for them, obviously, but I mean, there is definitely. I would love that transparency. If there was that, at least we would know where we stand. And I think at this point, I don't think Krunch is anywhere near.
I don't know.
So,
to be honest,
it might be. Like, for all you know, one more yes will just be the one where they're like, oh yeah, sure, that's possible.
Well, no, because I mean, there's a percent. You're like, okay, here's your percentage away from the top 100, right? And then, so basically, you can infer, okay, all right, so we're like, this many points from getting to that point. But even at that point, they have to decide, okay, are we on the top 10, or are they going to pick one of us? Or our approach to the whole thing, I was like, oh, you know what? Let's get on Greenlight. It's another place for people to see our game and get some awareness of it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. We thought of it more as a marketing portal.
Yeah, do we make it or we don't make it? I don't really care, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I don't know. We're of the philosophy, I think, that if your game is good enough, people will find it. One way or the other, somehow, at some point, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, people will play.
And that said, we're not idiots. I mean, we obviously know that being on Steam would get us more sales.
Sure.
Because people want to play Steam games. I mean, I have my Steam library. We all have them. And
ever-growing Steam library.
I tend to buy things on Steam now. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Krunch stands for itself, and if people see it on Steam, it's just one more place for people to see it and buy it.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, the Greenlight page is a great thing for me to just send to people because it explains the game. There's little captions about it. There's a video about it. There's screenshots. So just as it's very great that Valve just set that up for human beings to make their own little video game homepage at the very least. But you guys are skilled enough at art direction and web design anyway that you have a super nice Krunch game website people should check out. Krunch game, Krunch with a K, right?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it's
crunchgame.com.
I'm happy with the Big Lucky Game site.
Mike was talking about something that would be great to hear more about. What do you think of this growing number of people that I hear say that they feel resentful towards games that use low-res sprite-based artwork, that they almost feel as though that the developers making games like that are trying to manipulate them and play upon their nostalgia to get them to play a video game that they might not normally pay attention to, that it's like kind of like showing some leg or some butt on the streets. It's like
we're
nostalgia
not
butt.
We're not above showing some leg.
I have been known to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't get that argument. I mean,
you're tickling my rant button here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the show's all about. Please say as you will.
I don't know. You know what? There's tastes for everything. And I heard this other argument that really irks me. Where they're like, okay, well, it's just pixels because it's easy, or something in those lines. And the truth, the matter is that we made a choice to make Krunch that way and to look that way. And it's, to be honest with you, had very little to do with nostalgia. Like
It did for me.
I wasn't. What was that for you?
It did for me.
Well, that's just because he's in love with Mega Man. He will always be.
I am totally in love with.
It was just one of those.
He's a beautiful man. He's just a beautiful man.
At that point, I was like looking at the whole thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm sick and tired of like games on rails and like overly complex tutorials and people teaching me exactly what I need to do. I don't want to play like that. Just like toss me in the hole and let me be. Sort of thing, and that's where Krunch came from, man. And is it nostalgic? Is it retro? It is a little bit of everything. I mean, those are marketing words to me at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know. It's just you want to play the game, play the game. You hate on it, well, you're missing out.
I guess
here's an opportunity for you to get angry at yourself and then reward it at the same time. Here's the full package is right here. You're gonna die for 100 times. and you are going to give up most likely, 70% through it. But the time that you're in, you're sweating, man. That's it. You're sweating. You're enjoying something. You're not just sitting behind shooting, at somebody in Call of Duty. Not that I have anything against Call of Duty, because I do play it, or I used to play it. Yeah. I'll be back.
That is such a... They need to make a new Seinfeld episode about... it's a lot like Call of Duty. Not that there's anything wrong with that. People are constantly... I say it all the time that way. But I feel like a lot of people did try to cash in on nostalgia and made some games that were a little bit on the soulless side, and it's left people with a bad taste in their mouth, sadly, and people such as yourself who are legitimately in love with the art style you're using and aren't doing it to simply manipulate people. You're doing it because it's an honest expression of what your ideas were. You're left looking bad sometimes because of how other people soured the whole art style.
I don't know. Like I've never, I've played bad pixel games, and that's happened. But I don't necessarily look at it as people are trying to cash in on nostalgia. I mean, maybe they are. That may be their full intention. But if it's a bad game at the end of the day, it's just a bad game. It's not like I don't.
Sure.
Cheers.
Well, people don't even get as far as playing the game. I mean, people are looking at the art direction, and this is a problem in video games in general. I don't know if it's a solvable one, but people have very, very strong opinions about games they've never played all the time.
Absolutely.
And consoles they don't own. People say the 3DS is the worst console ever. Do you have one? No. It's the worst console ever. Why would I buy it? Well, how do you know it's the worst console ever if you don't have one?
Yeah, that's right.
Seems bad. And people say that about games as well because they go by their first gut reaction and turn that into not only an opinion, but a decision as to whether something has any worth or not.
Here's the thing. I guess that's kind of true. I mean, for the longest time, I used to hate RTS games. Like, Vieko would be like, "Oh man, you got to play Command and Conquer," and I'd be like, "Dude, get that garbage away from me. It's just not me." And then he got me playing StarCraft 2 when it came out, and I'm cool with the genre now. So, I mean, I think we all kind of fall into that. I've got certain things that I stayed away from.
Me too.
And, maybe someone just has to open their eyes to it. I don't know. I think when people don't like pixel games, I guess the way I feel about it is like, well, sorry if you're missing out. And if you genuinely really hate it, if you've never played a pixel game that you've liked, well, that's cool, man. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I'm not going to force your hand into wanting to play it. But I think you're missing out on certain things, just like I was missing out on RTS. So,
yeah, absolutely. What do you have a sense as to why pixel art was a good fit for you, and why you mentioned how it feels right. It feels like the games you love.
Well, okay,
was
so
it
for
mostly
me,
a feeling, or was there? Yeah, please do.
Specifically for me, it's because I'm really not an illustrator. I'm a designer through and through. So I know this type of stuff I can do. I can do very sharp vector things, and it's just because the way I approach art, I'm super meticulous. If something is out of place just by nudge, and that's why I can't illustrate because it's so loose.
That's why he got fired.
So pixel art just felt right to me because I could see when one pixel was wrong, I could move it, and then whereas
Sure.
So it's just my art style, and that's why
the confines put upon you with low-res pixel art, because you may just want to make that mouth look perfect, but you have to choose either that pixel's in or out. In either way, it might not look exactly as you imagine, but you have to cope with those limitations. It sounds like those limitations, in a way, help structure you and keep you focused on exactly what you want to do. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing too is with Krunch, we wanted a very limited color palette. Mm-hmm. We wanted a lot of contrast in it, and I think that adds to that sense of desperation in a certain way, because there is not a lot of detail in it, right? And there's a lot of colors and everything that is highlighted, it's on a tone of yellow, right?
Yeah, anything with yellow in it is important. So the Krebs are yellow. The characters have yellow in them, and the bosses have yellow in them. It's one of those things. I think movies have done it for a long time. Games have done it for a long time. You know, actually, games have been the culprit of that for way longer because I can remember, like in Wolfenstein or something, if a wall was a different shade, you knew that it could be moved. You know, it was that kind of tone that goes off in your head that you can tell something's important just by the smallest amount of like color can pop something like that.
But it was still, I thought it took a lot of guts to come out with your first game and have it's just a green, sad, maybe gonna die sewer world. You're for people who haven't played it, you're a Cyclops orb. You're given a little bit of context as to what your problem is. You were miserable before, and then suddenly you're set free from what you were trapped in, but maybe you're just going to die all the time, except for the very first level, I think.
Yeah, and that was kind of deliberate, but not really. I think, you know, going back to some of the classic NES games that inspired me was Blaster Master. I mean, it's like Blaster Master, there's a frog that jumps in radioactive goo and then in a hole, and you jump down there and like, oh shit, there's a massive truck down here with a huge cannon on it. Let's go! You know? So like, it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense, and all of a sudden you're like, this is really fun. And I love kind of taking that idea where it's like, yeah, you're just in these tubes, and then all this shit, you got a little bit of freedom, so you better run. So it doesn't make any sense, but it works. Yeah, and then we tried to, you know, like I said, it was kind of intentional that way because we went back with the collector's edition and the comic book to flesh out some of the backstory, and we're doing that with our next game as well, fleshing out these worlds that we're kind of creating. So we're super excited.
But it was a huge. Did you feel like you were taking a big risk? Did you feel like you could become destitute, or were you confident enough in both your skills? Really?
I don't think we really thought about it. We were just like, was like, this is the game we want to do.
I don't know, man. I think this whole thing is being a risk, and we're perfectly fine with it. Yeah. Like, you know, we are okay. You know, like you said, let's leave this comfortable, you know, somewhat extremely stressful world of advertising, and like, you know, let's just go make a game, though we haven't even done one before. But yeah, why not keep going with the same?
Well, it's what we, you know, after we got a taste for it and we started building games, we're like, oh man, this is actually really fun, so we should just keep going with it. Yeah. Because we could, I mean, I think we both feel fairly comfortable we could fall back into the advertising world if we had to.
No, that's no option anymore.
But it's not an option.
Nobody's going to hire me with this arm.
Actually, I got hired at an insurance company.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. So the way you make it sound is it's almost romantic. I almost want to make a romance movie starring Sandra Bullock and I don't know who's the hunk of the week these days. Ryan Reynolds, is he still hot? I'm not sure. But you found what you love, and you've got options. You could go another route, but because the love is there, you're not even considering anything else. This is just who you are now and what you're going to do.
I think so.
Pretty much.
Beautiful. You guys, makes me excited for you. We should talk about, well, I'm interested to hear how Krunch did. I don't know how much you want to talk about if it was a financial success or whether you feel like it's still building or what the plans may be. You talked about the collector's edition with the comic book.
Yeah.
How did you make it's hard enough to make a frickin' video game, but to also, and we made a comic book too. I can't make a video game or a comic book. You made both, you son of a bee. How'd you do it? Well, and how is it going?
You got to give a lot of credit to Sarah Gross in the comic book. She
snapped on that one.
She did. She did like a whole, like literally, she illustrated a whole comic book in a month.
Yeah,
like a 32-page comic book. Yeah, and it came out really, really well.
It came incredible.
It almost killed her, but
she's the illustrator. You did the art in game, or you did a lot of the art in game. But
so the way that came about, you know, I mean, we were scratching our heads and going like, you know, there's something missing here in the entire thing, right? And I started looking through, you know, the things that I used to like again back when, and how people had actually marketed games when it was just pixel, and it was not a choice; it was just a technological limitation, right? Mm-hmm. And I found my Castlevania 3 box, right? And on the outside, if you recall, you have like this painterly thing, you know, a rendition of
Simon Belmont.
You know, this is your typical Castlevania.
We just totally went into pose there.
Yeah, I know. So it was. You can't help it. Yeah. But anyway, so we're like, okay, you know what? What if we actually hired somebody this talented, like Sarah, and we had her put together her vision of the encounters with the bosses in Krunch. So that was the first task that we gave her. And the one that you used for the post on Destructoid, that was the first one she sent, and I was like, a Google gaga after that, like, that's like incredible, right? So that one thing led to the other. We used that material in game as well as like, for marketing purposes, and we decided kind of at the last minute, why don't we just flesh out what happens before Krunch in a comic book without text, without nothing, just frame by frame by frame. And that's what Sarah came together with. Like Mike, they kind of he wrote the story something.
We kind of co-wrote it.
Yeah.
I had put some ideas in her head, and she kind of went and took it and ran with it, and then we made some adjustments here and there, and yeah.
And for the people who don't know, how do they get this comic book? Is it a physical comic book, or is it?
In fact, we just finished printing the whole thing.
It's all offset printed.
Yeah.
I was on a press check last week, actually, just making sure everything was good to go.
So we went.
You talk about it so it's not. Most people don't just. Oh yeah, we made the comic book, guys. It's not. Within the grasp of most folks, but he just did it.
We went. We got to give some credit to our advertising experience here, right?
Yeah.
We did a lot of printing and offset printing, and we've dealt with like quite large contracts on that end. And dealt with printers, right? And we knew exactly what it took to put together a comic book, art prints, stickers, and everything that comes in the actual box, right? And we just started pricing it, and once we figured out that it was good, we just went with it.
Yeah, one of the other things too is when we kind of started going down that road of thinking about it was because Kickstarter was a big thing, right? And they had all these, the what's it? Not the giveaways, but you know what I mean.
The stretch goals, the
stretch
rewards,
goals, right?
Sure.
And I was thinking, like, there's so many cool things we could do with Krunch for that. And we actually talked about kickstarting maybe the last few months of development because we wanted to move off doing contract work and just go straight into the game stuff. But we had to balance it a little bit. But yeah, so that's how it kind of started. And then we're like, we could do a collector's edition. We saw that Jasper Byrne was doing one with Lone Survivor. It's like, there are people that really appreciate this kind of stuff. They like independent games. They like, having a collectible item, something like that. And we just said, shit, let's go for it.
It's our first game. You might as well go all the way, right? Yeah, so that was it, man.
Most people think, oh, this is my first game. I have to be scared. I'm going to spend 3 months on it and barely any money and just put it out there and hope for the best. But you guys were like, this is our first game, so comic book, collector's edition, 2 years of development. And I'm glad that you did. I don't mean to sound like I'm complaining, but you've got balls, sirs. That is my point that I'm belaboring.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and now that you've entered this world, you're in a peer group amongst Jasper Byrne of Lone Survivor and Team Meat. You're spoken about them in the same sentences. How does it feel to have joined their world, and what do you make of the successes and lack of successes of other games amongst your peers?
Well, I don't know if we're there. Thank you for saying that, but
well, you're in there. When I played Krunch, I was like, I think Edmund and Tommy of Team Meat would play this and be like, there's some nice ideas. They were influenced by us a little bit, but they took it in their own way, and they didn't steal from us like so many other people did. And these designs take from, or they use that school of thought, but in a totally different way without actually taking from it. It's like extrapolating a different arena. So you're there, but you don't think you're there yet, it sounds like.
Mike's just being modest.
I'm usually not. I'm usually an asshole. But.
He's a pretentious dick. He's in his best behavior right now, believe me, okay? And he's halfway down your first beer, so he's okay. No, he's just being modest. I don't know, man. I am glad that this industry has so much talent.
Yeah.
And I'm not even counting myself on it, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of holes in my way of working still, and yours is full of holes too. But it's a process. We're just happy that it happened. We were talking about launching Krunch in February, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's put it out in December.
Yep.
And he's like, well, this is the worst possible time to sell. I'm like, who cares? Just put it out.
He was right.
Let's launch our game, and okay, we're published. We're done. It's good. Now we can say we have finished a game from beginning to end, and we know what it takes, and we know how much it's good or not good, right? And now with that approach, we're looking into doing some more.
Yeah, you're already. We'll talk about your next project soon because you've given me a little hint of them, and I'm pretty excited about that. Oh man, that fuck it, let's do it attitude though. That is something.
Fuck it, let's do
it. Up Holmes shirts based on great things my guests have said. Paul Greasley lives in New Zealand. He recently said, I asked him why he made video games. He said it was better than being a stooge, just sitting around a car drinking. So that's one. And just fuck it, let's print this shit. Another one. People should live by. They've got to get over their fear and their overthinking or their outsmarting of themselves and just push ahead. So good on you on that. There are a bunch of questions came in. We will get to them in a second. But I do want to know what you think of, are there any games right now that you're excited about outside of what you're working on yourself? If there's games you think people should be looking at. Are there games that you were surprised did as well as they did? I've heard from a lot of developers on Greenlight and a lot of smaller teams that they were really surprised to see Shovel Knight, which is a game I think looks really cool. But it just like took over the internet for a while. It made like 10 times their, 3 times or 4 times their original funding amount. And it kind of took people by surprise because in a lot of ways it's not that different from other games of that style, but it got a very different reception. So is there any games that you've both been puzzled about the way they were received, both positively or negatively?
You know, I guess the only one that really kind of surprised me lately, but in a way, like I don't want to take anything away from it, is Antichamber.
Really?
It exploded, and I mean, it's not that I haven't even played it, so I can't speak to it, but I really want to play it immediately. But it surprised me because it seemed like it was a game that was only for a smaller amount of, like a smaller demographic, people that really like puzzle games, and it just exploded. So, like I said, I totally want to play it, and I'm not trying to take anything away from it because I'm sure.
Oh no, it doesn't sound like you are, but it sounds like, on the surface, what your expectation for how a game would be received, a non-violent first-person walk around in a white and then sometimes rainbowy world game, you wouldn't expect that to be #1 on Steam, but it was.
Exactly.
Which is interesting.
Exactly.
It speaks to something missing in the market. And I'm guessing that there's a large post-Portal fan base that wants that Portal feeling again, wants that this is smart, this is calm, this is a place where I can go and just kind of explore the inside of a developer's mind without having too much in the way of conflict in the process, which is what Portal did for a lot of people. But there's very few games like that out. And Antichamber fed that need, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think you're right on point, for sure. I loved Portal, and that's part of the reason I want to play Antichamber.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. It's the guy who made that game, Alexander Bruce, he's been on this. And he's been emailing me or texting me a little bit lately, telling me how freaking hard it was after he released that game. He got really sad, and it did really well financially, but he felt like a weird emptiness afterwards. It doesn't seem like you guys felt that on Krunch.
We've heard that before. You know, there's that post-launch anxiety or depression we've heard sometimes, and you know, I think there's a little bit where we were like, okay, well, what do we do next? But we kind of had Binge. Before we finished Krunch, we'd already started talking about Binge. And I don't know. I mean, I think that Vieko and I both have a whole bunch of game ideas in our sketchbooks. So we know that after one project is done, there's another one we can jump right on top of because we just have ideas for games and we want to build them. Like, I can't wait to build our next games.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I find it hard to relate, I suppose, to feel something like depression after you've kind of like put your child out in the world, you know? Like, actually, I was super excited to just see it, you know, to like, okay, website is live. In fact, I think I put it online at like 3 in the morning because I was like sitting down. I'm like, oh, man, I'm like sick and tired of waiting for this. And, you know, Mike was sleeping. I'm like, blink. we just went live, and that's it. I was like, all right, now I'm gonna go sleep, and that was it.
I remember I woke up in the morning and there was a text from Vieko saying, "Oh, hey, by the way, the game page is live," and I was like, "What the fuck? I couldn't even tweet about it."
I think it speaks to your style, which seems to be always moving. You guys seem like sharks to me already. You're just, you've pooped out your game, and you loved your game, but it's out. It's out the back end now, and you're already moving forward on a collector's edition of the game, and not one but two other games. And if you're always moving forward, I'd imagine those periods of depression where you feel a lack of energy, lack of being energized by the creative process. Like Alexander Bruce, from what I gathered, he got so much out of making the game. And then after he was done making it, it was like, what do I do now? Now I just hear what people think of it. Now I have regrets that I didn't make it as well as I wanted to. Now kind of got stuck in that, it sounded like. Whereas you guys are already planning, what, 1 or 2 more games?
We've got 2 that we're working on. But, I mean, that said, I want to, there's still things I want to do to Krunch. It's just...
Here we go again.
But hold on, it's one of those things, we've talked about this a lot. At what point do you try to flesh out your existing game?
December 27th.
Yeah. And what point do you just start building your next one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by adding things to Krunch, I don't know. Unless we get on Steam and there's like a Steam version of the game, I'd like to put a little bit more stuff in there. But
well, here's the thing. Okay, like there's 2 more game modes for Krunch. There are. They're started, but we just basically shelved them at this point.
Well, you talked about versus mode.
Yeah.
This versus mode in the regular version?
No, there's only a versus mode on the Winatron. That's the only place you can play.
Okay.
But these other 2 modes were completely different, and I mean we started working on them, but it's time to move on, man. It's time to start working on something else, and then like Mike said, if we find the time and the timing is right, then we do it.
Well, what about consoles? Have you thought at all? Have you talked to anyone at Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft?
We always tested Krunch with an Xbox controller, so we know it plays very nicely on it. And I think in any console it would be fun to have a game like this for sure. And obviously you would need a little bit of an additional code of something.
You'd need a little bit of paint on it for sure.
Yeah, but for sure. I mean, if the opportunity comes and everything aligns, for sure.
We'd love to. I'd love to. I mean, I've always been a console gamer until recently. I've started doing more PC stuff now, mainly just because of the indie scene. But yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about having your game on a console.
Do you have a console of choice, or would any of them? Do you want to be Norway about this and just?
I'll be Sweden. I'll be Switzerland. Switzerland, not Sweden. Sweden.
He's drunk.
Yeah,
it's official.
Half a beer and I'm done. You gotta get me out of it.
Yeah, you're fired.
I think it would look great on the 3DS because
Absolutely.
I love the way pixel games pop on that. But Microsoft's coming out with a new console, and they're really, from what I'm hearing from a lot of people, Microsoft has gotten a lot of press lately and kind of some bad energy with the smaller developers, which is the opposite of where they used to be back in when Castle Crashers first released. They were where people were focusing their attention. So I've heard Microsoft is kind of digging back in and trying to reform those relationships with smaller developers, and they've got a new thing coming out soon. That might be good.
Yeah, sure. We've heard that Sony's got a real big push towards indie.
Yeah,
that's kind of the rumors that we've heard.
Jam boner is what you mean.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Well, they got they're advertising Thomas Was Alone on the front page of PS3 right now. I
saw that last night.
Yeah, it was awesome. They've got Hotline Miami coming. They've got Lone Survivor coming. Games that don't fit even the stereotypical like artsy game about expressing your inner feelings and whatnot, which they've already had a lot of games like that on there. Now they're just doing weird games, just weird arcadey games.
Yeah,
like Krunch maybe.
We'd love to. We'd love to.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure you know all the people I know.
Cool.
Email later so you can talk to console people if you want.
Wicked.
But we should do questions because I'm being a dink. I ignored them again. I do that every week. And every week I say I'm a dink too. It's a pattern. Anne Frank's Wrist Deep Quest?
Wow.
What does that mean?
It sounds like a movie I want to watch.
Yeah, that is the username for this user. They say, first, I want to say that the soundtrack for Krunch is incredible, and it is. Under-talked about. That Disaster Piece guy, people talk about him in relation to Fez a lot, but he works on so much stuff.
He's a rock
works
star.
on your game. Yeah, he's incredible.
He's totally a fucking rock
We're
star.
hopefully going to have him on the show in a few months. I hope so. Can you talk about what it was like working with Rich? Did you guide his hand a lot, or did you basically let him go crazy? And we're now finding out that you co-wrote some of the music with him. So, but please tell us about that process.
So basically, the way it worked out with Rich is we got into a point in development where we wanted to launch soon, and we kind of figured out that I wouldn't have the time to build the rest of the music because I started with the first few tracks.
What a talent!
Yeah, what a talent! And so we brought in Rich. Vieko just reached out to him, and he was super receptive right off the bat, which was a little stunning to me, at least. That he,
I don't think he knows how big of a deal he is yet, which is nice.
Well, he is a rock star, so I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he doesn't know
he's
a rock
like
star.
one. I corresponded with him a little bit on email, and he's like, yeah, I'll do everything. I just like making stuff, and I like people, and let's just do a thing. He was all about everything, which is a great attitude.
Yeah, so at that point, my tracks, I think I had 4 tracks at most, and they were about a minute long, and just looping, because, it didn't, it fit the game at that point. Turns out we worked on the game for a year after that anyways. And during that time, Rich would just submit tracks, and we let him go wild. We just said, this is the stuff that I've done already, and this is kind of the tone we're thinking. And we said, go nuts. I mean, you're the rock star. Have at her. Yeah. So he started flowing in tracks, and at that point, I realized that I was like, my tracks do not stand up to this at all. Like I can't submit mine like this, and I had to go back and do a lot of work. And he actually gave me a lot of pointers, which was just incredible to hear from him in the first place that he would help us out. In fact, actually, when we first contacted Rich, Vieko was like, "Don't worry, you can just rewrite Mike's songs. Just go over them. It's fine."
We're not touching this thing.
And I was okay at that point. I was like, "Dude, I need to work on the pixel art. Like, there's other things I can be doing right now." And
Sure.
Rich was the one that said, "No, I don't want to go over someone else's music. I'd rather." He's like, "The music is good for what it is right now, anyways. So let's work together," which was amazing.
And they have people who've played it. Can they tell who did what? Because I personally think it all sounds good. And I didn't notice a huge difference. I mean, there's differences in style, but they feel intentional, not like, oh, they needed to get someone else to write this music, so suddenly it sounds different. It's the style always fits the scene. So
I think that's a credit to Rich more than anything, because he took the tone, he understood the tone of the game, and he nailed it. He nailed it. So, but that's awesome that you could bear there was similarity to the tone.
And for people who haven't heard it, it's not angry, but it's energized with tension, excitement, and negativity, I would say.
So we're both huge metalheads.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of my chiptune. Well, it's not really real chiptune actually. It's kind of
his music.
My music, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to follow just a genre like chiptune. Often speaks to someone just sticking to a mold because they want to play it safe, but it's not just chiptune. It's suddenly electric guitars, and then suddenly not.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to. Well, I mean, it wasn't
double kicks.
Yeah, double. I love my double kicks.
And was that what did you make that music with?
Say it. Come on. Yeah.
I made it with GarageBand.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't be ashamed. People need to love the tools.
Yeah. Rich is like, oh, I'm using Pro Tools and throwing all this shit around. And I was like, no, man, this shit was stock on my Mac.
Not at all. I feel like there is something that's on my mind all the time when it comes to video games is classism. It comes up, it seems like, every day in some way. When people talk about, we were talking earlier before about pixel art. Some people resent pixel art because they think pixel art is kind of the banner of these self-proclaimed outsiders from the mainstream of video games, and people are like proud to be outsiders, and they think that puts them in a higher social class, and everyone resents a snob, so they hate pixel art because it's like the symbol of those snobby games that are not for them, and they get mad about that. And there's also like a classism when it comes to the tools that people use to make video games. They think, oh, well, you made it with Game Maker, it's not a real game. I'll hear people say, oh, this looks like a Flash game, therefore that means it wasn't like a real game, where like Binding of Isaac was made in Flash. Like amazing games are made with tools that I love these tools because they destroy the classism and make it all level playing field, which is what I think video games should be. We're all just a bunch of nerds in the same way, right? Just playing video games.
Damn right we are.
Gosh darn it. I'm yelling at you guys so much today. Sorry, I'm just excited to talk to you. Happens when I like people. Coop Derga asked if there was any plans to bring Krunch to consoles. We already addressed that, but I wanted to say Coop's name because it might make him happy. B-Bane asks, I find it difficult sometimes to describe your game in terms of genre. What genre do you consider your game to be in?
I hate when people ask us like what genre it is, because I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I say like what I normally say, it's a platformer without gravity. We're going people are like, what?
It's a
flow.
People hate it when I say this. I compare a lot of games to Adventures of Lolo, because Lolo is a very pure, underappreciated game. So I think I just end up bringing it up because I want people to think about it. But in a lot of ways, your game is like fast-paced Death Lolo. You've got to solve the environmental puzzle quickly, but you can't use jumps, you can't use powers. Lolo is relatively powerless. You just needed to get through the obstacle course quick. Though Lolo is a little more meticulous. Yours is like death metal Lolo, maybe.
That's right.
Death metal Lolo, I love it.
And he's a little ball too. Everyone can relate with a little ball, I've noticed in life. But it's an obstacle course game at the very least. You can tell people that. Like to me, there's a very big divide between games you just want to play around in a big world and a game where it's like, this was a course designed for me to go through and have a certain amount of certain type of experience through this course that was pre-planned for me. And you guys did such a brilliant job on that. You did half of. You said you split up the level designs? Is that right?
Well, the way that work, and this reflects a lot the way that we work, And okay, I like grids and I like systems and I like that sort of thing because I program, right? It's normal. It's a fit. Mike is a mess. And
I like shit everywhere.
Like stuff. So basically what we said is, like, okay, when we had this 100 levels, and we're like, okay, Mike, I'm going to take 20 to 40, you take this many to this many, and then I'll give you my levels, and you'll give me your levels, and we'll make it work. So he finished, my levels were like perfectly centered and like, the same spacing on everything, and they worked. I liked them. I enjoyed them quite a bit. And his levels were a fucking mess. They were like all over the place. There was no theme to them or any of that stuff. But so I took this organic mess and tried to like add a little bit of my stuff, and he took my
I took his like overly rigid bullshit, and I messed it up a bit.
Yeah, and we ended up with a fairly good set of levels, right? And then at that point, it was a matter of how do we make them flow better, right? So at one point, the game was impossibly hard. Impossible. Like, it was like this game was made for Mike and Mike only. It was like, he was the only man that could actually finish it. So then he went and took it down a bed. That was his doing, and he made it too easy.
I don't think so at all. I think it's very. What I loved about it was how deeply I felt like you guys were in my head, and you knew exactly when I was going to be in a certain space. Like, you anticipated how long it was going to take me on my third or fourth try to get right to that space so you could have a wall come and kill me.
Well, I mean, the one thing that we were able to test that so well with is because you always have that one wall pushing you. So that automatically gives you a timer as to where the character is going to be relatively in that proximity. So, everything is timer-based in the whole game. And that's because we're pushing you, and all the timers are based upon the relative proximity of the player at that time. So that's why we're able to get away with some of those like really surprising walls that come out of nowhere, because we have an idea of where it'll be.
Yeah.
Sure, but you put that wall in there to push me where you wanted me to go, and I'm not thinking about what you're thinking as a designer. I'm just thinking I don't want that wall to kill me. So it's still such a elegant surprise. Very nicely done.
Complimenting. You were being.
Thank you.
What is it that you call it again? You were being humble.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you.
You guys have such a brotherly. I feel like you guys have known each other forever. You're so comfortable. talking about each other's quirks that are different and the differences between you, but there's this underlying respect there the whole time, which is so nice. And the amount of respect you must have had to be like, oh, well, I worked on these levels all month. Here you go, Mike. Change them the way you think they should be, and vice versa. That must have really... How was that process for you, actually? Give me some details on that.
Man, here's the thing, okay? This entire time that we've known each other, we've always been trying to out-condescend each other. It's been a repeating thing. It's just arguing and
he's still not very good at
it. Bickering and whatever, right? And I don't know. I think it's liberating to get. Okay, here's one thing. Okay, this is the first time that Mike joins in for a meeting at the agency, right? Mm-hmm. We're presenting logos for this resort, and I am the lead designer in it at the point. So I present my logos, and he goes and trashes my winner. Okay, because you always have like a whole bunch of losers, and then you have your winner. He trashes my winner. I was like, who the hell is this like recently graduated, from my college of art and design guy? He's like, thank you guys.
Hey man, if you want to use Illustrator brushstrokes, you go ahead, but they look like shit.
That's what the client wanted. But you know what I mean. So like that kind of set the tone, and then from point on, although he was, like I was training him at the time, in a way. That still remained, and that's been the same way it's been since ever, right?
Yeah, and you fired him, and yet...
his head wasn't in the game. He totally screwed up. He didn't listen to me. I even said to him, like, Mike, what you're doing is going to take forever. He's like, well, I know Photoshop very well. No, trust me. You're fucking up. No, it's all good. I'm like, all right. So time comes for it, and he is like 30% into the process. So
yeah, but it looked good. It looked good.
It didn't look good. The drop shadows were too loose. It did not look good. But the thing is that his head wasn't in the game, so he had to be fired, and that helped.
It did.
You came back with a different attitude.
Actually, I spent like a good 3 months on the couch playing Final Fantasy 12. So it was fantastic.
That'll help you recover. That'll put you in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, it was good.
And now you chose each other to work together. I mean, you've had this relationship of critiquing each other, you as the boss Vieko and Mike as the young upstart. Like, reminds me a little bit of Batman and Robin, actually.
Oh.
But I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm Nightwing already. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
More questions. I should do them. I'm ignoring them again. R. Xanadu asks, could you teach Holmes how to make a game? I didn't know he was going to ask this. He's always wanted to make a game. Given his work with teenage Pokemon, I have a cartoon you should not watch. Everyone else should watch it, but not you two.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Oh, let's not talk about it. I think he would be a great addition to the growing game developer community. That's so nice of you. He thinks I'd be a good game developer. I don't think I would. I think that the amount of risks you guys take is beyond what I could do emotionally. I think that maybe I would have the ideas. You never know until you try. I can't.
I think it would make a great game designer.
What about this? Let's just do this. For one of these game jams coming up, we'll meet there and we'll build a game together.
Whoa.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah,
you guys come up with me, only knowing me from writing dumb stuff and talking to me today. And
fuck it, let's do it.
Hey man, I've been listening to your show long enough. Like there is potential there for sure.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Let's do it.
No. Well, that's a vote of confidence I need to think about for a while. Let that absorb in, because I just don't think I got the stuff. But thanks, dudes. Appreciate it. All right, we're 5 minutes. We're 2 minutes into the hour, so we have 28 minutes to go. That's a nice place to be. We'll probably get more questions in, but in the meantime, can you tell us about your new games, Binge and Chihuahua Libre?
Yes.
Is that I remembered correctly?
You take
Binge. Is the one.
Binge. You take Binge. I'll take Chihuahua Libre.
Okay.
Yeah. Start with Binge. What is Binge gonna be?
Okay, so Binge is the follow-up to Krunch, and it is. I'm not going to ruin anything because I know that not a lot of people are going to finish Krunch, so I'm just going to put it out there. When you finish Krunch,
I don't tell people the ending of the game.
Well, do I have to kind of like set it? Well, no, look.
Okay, so there is something. If you get the collector's edition in the comic book, there's an entity, a giant eyeball with tentacles.
Yeah.
So the creature.
The creature.
Yeah.
He's also imprisoned by the Squall. The Squall is the race that has all the Krons trapped in the tubes.
The Krons are the little eyeballs that you play with.
So the general gist of Krunch is that the Squall are basically like these engineers, and they open up dimensional portals into other worlds and fish into them to collect life forms, and they cut them up and they test them and they
do
research them.
They're probing.
They're always collecting.
They're always probing.
They're always probing and yeah, a lot of probing. Vieko likes probing, but
Bukaki.
So there's definitely a playing on people's fears of being manipulated by a larger power structure, by people that are just going to treat you like experiments for their own use. So
exactly.
You've got that feeling in there.
So now you got the backstory out of there without ruining Krunch.
Yeah, see, I'm good at that.
So basically, the last surviving Kron makes it to Earth by accident. Okay, so gets down to Earth, and this massive creature follows him too. So he happens to find Earth as well. Now he's trying to catch him, right? He's trying to get him. So you are basically rampaging through Earth, city by city, and trying to get this little thing. The deal here is that you are like a shark. You cannot stop. You have to continually be going and going and going. In order to go, you need energy, life force. In order to get life force, you need to destroy or kill things. So basically, you have to rampage through the world in order to continue and get to this little guy. So that's the game's going to take you, through Earth. You're going to go through every single continent, and we have a pretty good idea for how it's going to end. But essentially, it is like a shoot 'em up side scroller with a bit of RPG to it, but not quite.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has action elements like Metal Slug.
Like Metal Slug, yeah.
Huh. So who do you play as exactly?
You play as the creature.
You play as a creature, yeah.
Giant eyeball with tentacles. It's constantly upgrading its shells and technology, weapons, everything like that. And I
always thought of the creature as something I was supposed to fear, but now you're kind of taking that on and you're being the creature. Huh.
You are being the creature, and we want to give the sense to the player that you are unstoppable. Period. Right? So it's less about which weapon do I choose. We don't really care about that. You choose which weapons you're going to use at the beginning of each stage, and then it's a proximity-based game. So depending on when you decide to attack what enemy, a different weapon gets shot or fired, I guess. And it's a game of balance, right? Because if you shoot something, if you fire something, you lose energy. If you lose too much energy, you die. If you don't attack enough, if you're not aggressive enough, you die too because you run out of energy, right?
It's kind of like Krunch in the sense where you need to know where to boost.
Yeah.
In Krunch, you need because if you use the boost nonstop, you're going to drain your life force.
And you're going to die super quick. So it's inspired by. Horror movies,
old school monster movies. Like on the webpage, it shows like a monster movie type illustration.
And the intro of Earthbound a little bit. It's like the UFOs destroying the city.
Yeah, for sure. And we want to have a bit of like that Mike Mignola look to it. So dark and like heavy outlines and drawing with shadows per se.
Is it going to still be pixel art like Krunch, or is it going to be hand-drawn?
No, it's going to be illustrated this time around. And I guess we need to go through our prototypes first, but it might end up being a 2.5D type game. So it plays like it's going to have a bit of 3D to it, just to add atmosphere to it, but the gameplay itself is going to be 2D.
Gotcha. So are you thinking polygon models, or maybe hand-drawn, or?
Not sure about that just yet. I mean, I think hand-drawn for sure. But I mean, for most of it, we may have some 3D in there, but just for atmosphere. Sure. So it might just help us with the shadows more than anything. But it's too early to tell. As it is right now, we want to get the controllers, the controls flowing fine, and we are designing this with a controller in mind. Just playing with it directly. It would play with like mouse and keyboard, no problem, but. That's our main input right now is a controller.
Huh, interesting. It reminds me a little bit of what Gaijin Games did with the Bitrip series, where they made a follow-up to their first game, Bitrip Beat, but they stayed in that world, they stayed with that psychology, and it sounds like the psychology is similar to Krunch in that you're always moving forward, you're not looking back, you're not thinking about what you did, you're taking on the next issue constantly while measuring your meter at the same time and not overstepping what you're capable of doing and shooting yourself in the foot of the process. But now you've gone from powerless little cute Cyclops ball that you feel so sad for to a multi-tentacled bastard who will destroy everything he needs to. And he's looking for the character from the first game. Is that right?
Well, that's how the story is set. Like, and then basically. The beautiful thing about this is that, Earth is just bystanders, so we can get away with a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, they're going to be people, or they're going to be innocent pedestrians in the way?
Well, for sure. Yeah, he's going to be eating them all.
Just consume everything.
Just consume. And, we want to get that bit of, I guess, fun in comical sense from, Metal Slug, where, say, for example, you're gonna be going through, Rio de Janeiro, or you're going to be going through, Moscow, or you're going to be going through... different places and different locales, and we're going to be playing onto that.
Like a few cliches here and there. We had an idea for Rio de Janeiro, the boss being Rock'em Sock'em Jesus.
A giant Jesus that could do that.
The statue in Rio de Janeiro, it comes to life, and it's like Rock'em Sock'em.
I didn't know there was a Rock'em Sock'em real Jesus statue in Rio de Janeiro.
Well, it's not Rock'em Sock'em yet. It's not yet.
Not yet. There is a giant Jesus statue in the Cerro del Corcovado in Brazil. So anyways, it will be set up in there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like, just off the cuff, I'll tell you that if Krunch was an energetic but somewhat sad metal song, not quite a metal ballad, but it was to touch your heartstrings. This would just be like a balls out. Double bass, tear them apart, kill them all, good time.
There's definitely going to be a lot of shredding. A lot of shredding.
I look forward to that. And then on the flip side, you have Chihuahua Libre, that's not connected to the Krunch world, I would guess.
No, not at all. Chihuahua Libre is a game. It's a game about an underground racing circuit where luchadors ride the backs of chihuahuas. So it's a racing game. It kind of plays. I guess the way we've set it out is it plays like Excite Bike with a lot of elements from Mario Kart mixed into it. So.
Oh, really?
Weapons and different lanes. And we're also going to add some. I don't know. We've taken references from SSX. There's going to be tricks you can do off your Chihuahua.
You can grab that Chihuahua and just stretch it.
Yeah.
So are these really big Chihuahuas or really small luchadors?
They're tiny.
The luchadors are more midgets, I think. But I don't know.
No. It's the luchadors are these giant dudes, and they're riding on these tiny little dogs, right? And it's just that that alone makes for a comical thing, right?
Yeah. And, absolutely, it does. I often feel in life like I am the Chihuahua. And there's a giant luchador. So I can relate with those chihuahuas right off the bat. That's not going to be...
You want to hear something funny, though? The chihuahua is the leader of the group.
Not the luchador.
Really?
The luchador is just a tool. That's it. The chihuahua is the brains of the operation.
Huh. I wonder if the luchador knows that.
No.
It doesn't matter what the luchador thinks.
It doesn't matter.
It's interesting you would mention Excite Bike. That is a game... a series, I should say, that I feel like is underappreciated for how simple and smart it is. Just tilting your bike in the air and landing in order to get a boost of speed in the WiiWare remake in particular. Really underplayed game, but a lot of tiny decisions you can make second by second to keep you involved with the game and feel connected to it. I mean, I think my philosophy on game design is the more second-to-second decisions you have to make, the more opportunities for connection you have to the designer, which is another compliment for you. There's so many second-to-second decisions in Krunch about boost, like you said. How hard do you want to push left, or you want to make sure you don't hit that wall, or are you more worried about the wall that's coming from behind you? So those second-to-second decisions make for an involving experience for me. But people don't rip off Excite Bike enough, so I'm pretty pumped to hear you might be taking your cues from it. Are you gonna? How exactly? You mentioned the power-ups from Mario Kart, but in what ways would you borrow from Excite Bike other than the 4 lanes, or is that too early to say?
No, I mean we're looking at a few lanes, and the power-ups all do kind of different things. I mean, a lot of them are taken from Mario Kart in the sense, like, you know, you have your we're not going to use green shells or red shells, obviously, right?
Sure.
But weapons that work similarly to them. You have a forward attacking weapon. You have weapons to place behind you to trip up the other Chihuahuas. You have, I mean, we don't have an equivalent for like the lightning bolt or anything like that.
No.
But one of the things we're thinking about.
Talk about the rectal jalapeno.
The rectal jalapeno. You stuff it in your Chihuahua's
this is the game where your personality is really.
You can imagine what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But a racing game that's from a side perspective, that's pretty tough. You don't have turns necessarily. Are you going to implement turns into it, or is it going to be?
It's too early to tell right now on that front. We've played around with some ideas about how we're going to do turns. It's one of those things that depends how far down the road we go with 3D. If we go more 3D, then I think turns could possibly happen. But at this point, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. No.
I mean, yeah, we'll see.
I think there might be a cue as to like, okay, you're taking a turn right now. You might not be seeing it as a turn, but because I mean, the advantage of being in a curve at that point from a race perspective is that you can, I mean, it's when everything lines up. If you're going to be looking at a race from the top, right? So we might play into something from that perspective, but we'll see.
Huh, interesting. So in lieu of turns, would it be more obstacles? Like Excite Bike was more about hitting the jumps and landing the jumps.
There's going to be obstacles, and there's also going to be change in the elevation of the actual race itself. What because this is not set in Mexico per se, but it is in a parallel Mexican universe per se. Okay, so there's so much to borrow from like the geography of Mexico that there's so many things that we can use there that Now obviously the tracks are not going to be just inspired from it, but we are going to be making quite a bit of changes in like the heights and whatnot, because you want to have air to do your turns. You want to be able to like stretch that Chihuahua forward, or pass him over the shoulder, or like toss him up in the air and put it in your pocket. I don't know, something like that, right?
The backpack where you flip it over.
The backpack, yeah, that's right.
We've been sketching ideas for tricks, and like backflips are incorporated in this and all this stuff. And when you hit the ground, if you nail the landing, it boosts a little bit. And it's just what we want to do is really just build an amazing kind of racing local multiplayer game where guys can get together, or women too. We love women as well, and just put some beers on the table and let's go to town.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so it's local, 4-player, at least 4 lanes. It sounds like per player.
You'll be
each other's lanes,
4 or 5
messing each other up. Right, huh? Yeah, that sounds like there's tons of opportunity for people's different play styles and their personalities to come out.
Well, and it also depends on the luchador Chihuahua, because you select each one of them. So how you select them also determines your play style. It's kind of like in Mario Kart, if you were to take a heavy character, he accelerates slower, but has a higher top speed. Sure. We may do things like that, but we definitely want to have the Chihuahua and the Luchador, 2 different selectable characters, so you can build your own race team.
To upward scale the amount of possibilities in terms of tailor-making your ride just as you'd like.
This has to feel like, when you're playing multiplayer, it has to feel like a game where your younger brother kicks the shit out of you, and gets to brag finally. It's like, beat me, sucker type thing, right? Because that's what's fun about this sort of game. You don't need to be that advanced to like, be able to win. Like anybody can pick it up and boom, you just go. Like even your younger brother can beat you.
I wish Zynga thought like that. They'd still be in business today, because they worked so hard to try to make, this is accessible to everybody, hooray, which is nice, but in a way their soul got tapped out. If instead to come in and, like, your little brother will punch you in the face and he deserved that win. He's good at this game. We made it so anybody can punch anybody in the face.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to aspire to, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is we both have brothers, so we know what it's like.
Yeah, my younger brother beat me only one time, and he's still rubbing it in my face, and he always will.
What did he beat you in?
Warcraft 2 is what he beat me on.
Whoa.
RTS, and that was my thing. That was like my thing, And next thing you know, he's like rolling over. And I'm like, okay, let's just surrender. And he said, no, let's wait. He goes like, let's play this out. And I guarantee you, if you had like, the means to like tape it and whatever, I will be watching that stupid video every week. But
you know what? You don't have to, because I beat you in StarCraft all the time.
Oh yeah, that's just not right. No, this man went from like being my mob to like actually he's beating me in StarCraft. I don't know what's wrong. Like there's something.
Because I play Zerg.
Yeah, that's right.
Gregory Nazarene. Is that the Nazarene? Is the Nazarian asks, are there any gameplay elements, techniques that you feel are overused? And do you take that into consideration when creating a game or an idea? Do you feel as though... Yeah.
I think it's funny because I think Vieko and I both have different opinions of techniques that are overused. And like I'll suggest something of Vieko, like, there's no way we're doing that, man. There's no way. And he'll do the same thing. I was like, dude, that's so played out, man. Like you can't use that mechanic. But at the end of the day, we kind of compromise and it works. Like, what do you think is overused?
Gameplay element or technique?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think those need to serve a purpose in the game itself. So I don't know if they're overused. If anything, there's just games that are too much alike out there, and that's why you might feel that that's the case.
I think Vieko didn't want to do a platformer for the longest time.
Oh, I hate.
Well, I was gonna say, if Krunch had been a platformer, people would have immediately, and people assume it's a platformer because they just guess that's what developers are going to try to sell right now. But the fact that you didn't make it a platformer said to people, these guys aren't just trying to sell. These guys have their own idea that they're doing because they mean it.
In the middle of development, for Krunch, we had an identity crisis, and we almost added gravity into it. And thank God we didn't go down that road.
Really?
Yeah, let me just say something. Okay. Yeah, this fucker here. He got like every other week he will be like, I need a new set of tiles. I'm like, no, you don't need any more tiles. Like this game's got so much happening that you're gonna be giving seizures to people. But somehow he managed to slide this thing by me. I was so tired I didn't notice what it was. But there is one spot in this entire game where you can actually sense gravity.
Really? Where?
Where like that stupid goose coming down on like the tech lab. It's the boss of the tech lab. Okay, you're going in here, and there's this pink goo coming down, and like you're like, whoa, wait a second, because the entire time you feel like you're going through liquid, right?
Uh-huh.
And then at this point, out of a sudden, there's something going from the top down called gravity, right? And somehow that made it into the game, and that confuses the crap out of you. Because there's cues to gravity in some spots in the game where you push a box. Sometimes it goes down, sometimes it goes up. But that was just, it was like, you know what, who cares? It's our game, it's our level, and we need to make it work, so it's going to go down. Or it's going to go up.
Yeah.
But anyways, he managed to get gravity in.
The box just goes up because it goes up. There's no real reason.
That's right.
Because it was like, well, that's kind of cool. That's why the box goes up.
Yeah.
Well, I love that sense of mystery, and it makes me, when developers give me a world that's unpredictable, it shows me that they had confidence that I could take it. Like, in general, your game showed me that you had confidence that your players were going to be able to... I mean, you're very good to your players. You don't make them sit through a tutorial. You teach them quickly on the go, and you already know most of the rules within, 2 or 3 minutes of the game. But at the same time, you were willing to throw curveballs when you wanted to, and it made me feel like I was in a real place instead of kind of a sterile, by-the-book, very meticulously set up, of course, but still organic at the same time. Reminds me of Mega Man 2. I'll take any excuse I can for Mega Man 2 to talk about it. After you beat Dr. Wily in Mega Man 2, and then you fall into... For the first time in the game, there's no music. And you're like, what? Did the game break? And then there's just dripping red whatever that is. And that's the only sound you get. It's bling, 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 and then the farther you go, the more of those you get, and you're just like, what the hell is... Where's this isn't the Mega Man 2 anymore. You freaked me the hell out. Krunch achieves that. Not all the time, but at times it made me feel like they just freaked me the hell out.
Thank you, sir. That's a huge compliment, because those are some of my most favorite moments in games. When you're like, what just happened? Where am I? Holy shit.
Yeah, mentioning Legend of Zelda 1 is something you guys both liked. There's a huge movement I've noticed. It's getting bigger every day, it seems like, or at least I talk to somebody new every day who says Zelda 1 is what we need to get back to. Just give them their world and wish them good luck, and they'll figure it out. Actually, quick story, real quick. My wife played Zelda 1 for the first time last night. We videotaped it. She just ran right as hard as she could go. She didn't even notice the cave. She was just like, keep going right, and then just kept bumping into monsters and died. Second time she played, keep going up. Just keep going up. Died. Then she goes left, and you can't go left. She's like, this game sucks. Go. And I'm like, did you notice that black square? In fact, I didn't even say that. And she went in to the cave, just out of curiosity on the fourth play, and saw an old man. She's like, old man, and then left.
You didn't read it?
Anyway, it's just going to tell me how Chihuahua Libre might look, or what your influences are in terms of the art direction.
For sure. It is going to be bright, very bright. It is going to take, it's going to have a bit of like a comical look to it, like very fun, very accessible, if you will. And, it was, how did he say it? Serendipitous. We were working with Sarah Gross on Chihuahua Libre to begin with, and our times did not align, so we had to find somebody else to work with. And Ray Frendon, do you know the name? Ray Frendon, he's this dude that's done some illustration work for Nike, Harley Davidson. Like, his resume is incredible.
Yeah.
But he is such a cool guy. Like he's like one of us basically. Like, it just feels like, we've known this dude for quite some time, and he gets everything, right? He gets it. So I think he's gonna bring something rougher to the look of the game, which is cool. So it might end up looking a lot like a playable tattoo in a way. It might get a boost of that.
Yeah, we haven't figured out anything for the illustration style or how it's going to look quite yet. But Ray's stuff alone is amazing. So it's like working with Rich and Disaster Piece. It's like we have total confidence in the fact that he's going to do something amazing. So whatever he suggests, or whatever proofs he's got that we can look at, we just know it's going to be awesome. So
I guess we don't necessarily want to drive the whole thing and direct it and be like a dictator on that end. I think that everybody has to add to it, and you end up with a better product.
Totally.
Jordan Fair, who did the sound for Krunch, he did such a great job, and he was one of those guys that I always wanted to work with, and I completely forgot about him until like the last minute, like the last 2 weeks of Krunch. I'm like, holy.
No, like literally, Vieko reached out to Jordan like
10 days
before we launched Krunch, and Jordan went in and redid all the sound work.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was just insane.
He is he's a master of his craft, man, and he did add quite a bit to the game. Not just, I wasn't like, I want a sound for this and this and that. He's like, how about we add this crumpling sound to like the last level, so we make it feel like it's even worse than it is, right? So he did quite a great job, and I guess that's how we like to approach our projects, and we just, bring in somebody, let their influence soak into the project, and kind of like direct the overall, but let people do their thing, right?
Yeah, and we've been super lucky to be able to work with a lot of these people that are so good at what they do. And why limit them, right? They're amazing as it is. Let's just let them run with it.
Yeah.
Give a little bit of direction here and there with how we kind of see the tone, but other than that, they're masters of their craft anyways. Let them do it.
I hope you guys never change, you guys. I'm talking to you briefly after the release of your first game. So you guys are like, you just got the car keys, and you're hitting the road running, and it's awesome to see. And the amount of power that you've got driving you is apparent on first sight. It was just the first couple of seconds I realized these dudes are on fire. And never lose that fire, please. I'm asking you now. Never lose your confidence in yourself and in working with other people and trusting them and learning what you probably found out from the corporate world is that a sterile, controlled environment where people have to just do what they're told specifically doesn't lead to fireballs happening. And you've ditched that. You're taking all the skills you've got from the advertising world, applying it to your love of design and video games in general, plus just a blazing Human Torch frickin' creativity, you sons of bitches. I'm pretty excited about you guys. It's great.
Well, we just can't wait to do more. Really, like that's.
Yeah. Don't get burnt out. Don't get sad. Every once in a while,
if we could get burnt out, we would have done it already. The advertising world would have killed us.
Oh man, yeah.
I'd imagine, yeah. And as long as you keep working with people that aren't going to accidentally screw you over, when so far so good, you'll never get hurt by a collaborator who sucks. Keep working with smart people and talented people like you are. You're going to win hard. Anyway, I've talked about you a lot this episode. Sorry for talking so much. I'm just excited. Man. Tell us where we can follow you on Twitter before we wrap up the show.
You can follow me at Vieko, Vieko, and you can follow Mike at LeGrudge Rugged.
Yep.
And both of you together at LeGrudge and... Is it Rugged or Rugged?
Yeah. Rugged. So the whole. I'll just briefly wrap this up real quick.
Please do.
The company the company names comes from our aliases. He's LeGrudge. I'm LeGrudge Rugged.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. So,
and those are our Xbox gamer tags.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to hit us up on Street Fighter, bring it.
And your games, crunchgame.com, and they can also find you on Steam, Greenlight. Chihuahua Libre has its own budding.com, as does binge.com.
Bingegame.com, right? Yeah.
Bingegame.com. Yeah, people should check you out. As for me, I'm Tron Knots on Twitter, and you can watch the show in rerun form on YouTube, on Detoid TV's YouTube channel, and you can listen to it on iTunes. Subscribe to us there if you want. Do it every week. Jeez, for over a year now. Yeah, it's been fun. All right, I guess that's it. Thanks so much, guys. It's really nice to meet you. Wave goodbye. Bye.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, see you, man.